Hello friends, this is Tiina and welcome to a new video. It is finally a sketchbook tour time and I'm super excited about it. But before we get into the actual video, I'm just going to say a few things here in the beginning and I'm trying to keep this as brief as I possibly can. So first of all, this is a Strathmore mixed media sketchbook in size A5 and I have linked it below along with a video where I talk about my thoughts about this notebook more in depth. So if you want to see and hear my thoughts about the sketchbook and see me painting the last spread in it as well, I have linked that video down below so you can check that out. And just a reminder for you all that I am referring to the actual notebook when I'm calling this a sketchbook. There are no sketches inside. All of these paintings have taken me at least like 2 hours and maximum 10 hours to make. So these are my finished pieces. There are some of my best artwork inside of this sketchbook. So please don't use this video as a standard for your future or your current sketchbooks because that's definitely not something I'm trying to say here. The actual flip-through portion of this video was filmed many months ago at this point, so there are moments where I'm saying in this video something like I'm going to be turning this into a print later, or I might turn this into a print later. And since some time has passed, I have in fact turned some of these into prints in my shop, which is linked below. So if you like my art and you would like to support me and get a print or some sort of original, I have my shop linked below. And you can also just search for dinasdiary.com to find my shop and maybe get something for yourself. But with that, we can finally get into the actual sketchbook tour, so let's go. I think I forgot to check, but I started the sketchbook in June or July last year. As you can see, I skipped these first spreads here. This is just the cover, and this here is kind of like a printer paper, and it's glued weirdly to the next page, so it doesn't open fully. So I always skip the first and last pages. I started this sketchbook in a video actually. I will try to link all of the videos down below that I've done with this sketchbook and these pages. So here I painted something that was kind of a little bit more meaningful for me here for the first pages. I live in Finland and I have for my whole life, so I wanted to dedicate this first spread to finish summer because I was painting this during the summer. And I actually really like this spread, especially this painting here. This painting was made from a photo that my boyfriend sent me while he was on a summer cottage with his friends. I just really like the photo and it really got me inspired to paint, so I painted it here. I don't think this turned out to be that amazing, but it's okay. I love this one so much. This was painted from my own reference photo and I had taken this in my hometown near my childhood home. And this boat here is actually one that my grandpa has built like years and years ago that I talked also about in that video. Its name is Maya, but unfortunately my grandpa passed away last year, but at least this painting here always reminds me of him. Sorry about that kind of loaded start to the video. And here's a painting or a spread that I did afterwards. I wasn't very active here in the beginning of me using this sketchbook. I honestly don't really even remember when all of these were painted, but I think this was done at some point in June because it was before midsummer. And then actually before I painted this painting here, I actually went to this one. So I kind of did this in a weird order, but I painted this one in a video as well. And if you have watched that video, which was a mess by the way, I painted this forest page here on a video that I made on YouTube where I went outside and painted what I see in front of me. I was in my hometown again and I was just painting a forest pathway. And at the time, if you have watched that video, it wasn't the most pleasant experience ever. And I was really struggling with, mosquitoes and things like that, Finnish summer. So I was not really enjoying the experience as much as I would love to. So this here didn't turn out exactly how I wanted. Now I don't see anything wrong with it. Like, I like this painting. There is nothing wrong with this painting at all, but at the time when I finished this, I hated this painting for some reason. Like, I really disliked it, but I guess that's what distance can do. But that is also to show that sometimes when you dislike a painting, it might not be about the painting itself, it's just about the process, because this was a struggle, let me tell you. And here is kind of like a palette cleanser painting. Always when I kind of start feeling like I want to paint something, but I don't really know what, I often go for either daisies or some sort of sunset cloud paintings because they're always ones that I enjoy painting, but I don't really have to think about the topic as much, something really nice. Again, I painted this before the daisy painting, but this I also painted in a video. I noticed, by the way, that there's a lot of these paintings here in the beginning that I painted in different YouTube videos, but I guess that was because I was much more active at this time. So I painted this while I was on a little vacation last summer in the Swiss Alps and Italian Dolomites. I was actually on the last day of this trip in Italy when I painted this one, but this was taken in the Swiss Alps, and I love this painting so much. I didn't necessarily love the process of painting this because I often just prefer painting at home. It's like my safe space and I feel the most creative at home, but I painted this abroad. But I think that, taking in all of the circumstances, I think this turned out really nice. This was also turned into a print later. I have this as a print in my shop. If you are interested in this painting and you like it, I'll try to always remind you when that is the case. And here's a spread that I just kind of did on a whim. I was really feeling like just painting something, but I had nothing in my mind. So I just painted something that I've pretty much never painted before, which is this like very loose hydrangea painting here. And then we have this very moody and foggy landscape. As you can see, this is very easy to see on this spread, but we have some color transfer. People always ask me, does this happen? And for me, it doesn't happen in a very, very bad way where I can it doesn't look that bad to me. And this is also my sketchbook, so I don't really mind. But this is a prime example of what sometimes happens when we have this very dark page against a very light page when the book is close together. So yeah, that sometimes happens. Doesn't really bother me. It's okay. This spread is very much like an unusual color scheme for me, but I quite like it together. I don't really love this page as its own, but again, I enjoy the color combination and kind of like the mood of these two paintings together in a spread like this. Then I just wanted to paint something a little bit more warm. As you can see, a very big contrast between the very blue tones to these very orangey and yellow tones of this spread. This painting here was painted from my own reference photo where I had been a few summers ago. I was just on a little bike trip close to us, and there is this like outdoor greenhouse, and it had beautiful little windows and some pretty plants. But while I was painting this, I noticed how much this was going to take if I tried to paint this, in a realistic way, or just if I wanted it to be a little bit more detailed. So as you can see, I'm very messy with the leaves, and that's not my favorite look because I think that there is, I like the interesting look with the windows, but then obviously the greenery on top is kind of like much less detailed, but it's okay. But now, as you can see, we are getting to the autumnal spreads. So at this point, I was really, really determined to paint as many autumnal spreads in my sketchbook as I could, because last time that I finished my sketchbook, my first sketchbook, I struggled with the fact that I really got my inspiration to paint only in spring, and then I was really sad that I couldn't paint more autumnal spreads in my sketchbook. And overall, autumn is the shortest season of the year here in Finland, so I just really wanted to kind of take all beauty out of autumn and just like put it into the sketchbook. So that's what I tried to do. I love this spread so much. This is again a print in my website. I love the colors. I love the unusual but somehow more realistic autumnal look to the spread. So it's not just like fully orange landscapes. So it has some different shades of blue and yellow and green and red. I just really like this, and the white fence is a great contrasting piece to the whole background. And here is this very serene autumnal landscape. I got a permission from a great friend of mine, Anna, who had taken this photo on her trip to Lapland, Finland. I think this was taken in Utsjoki. So yeah, she had posted this picture on her Instagram. I will, by the way, link it below if you want to see that. And I just asked her if I could use that photo for a painting inspiration, because I was really struggling with the fact that I didn't find good enough autumnal pictures online to use for these paintings, so I decided that I would ask her and she said yes. So I'm happy that I turned it into a painting because I love the peaceful look of this painting. So as you can see, here we have more of that very typical autumnal landscape with the orange leaves and orange colors in both of these. I think I like this spread because it's autumnal, but I don't really enjoy these paintings as much. I feel like orange colors are sometimes so hard to create different shades with and create shadows with. So I think the colors look a little bit muddy and just kind of all over the place. I actually painted this on a smaller scale on a YouTube tutorial, and I think that turned out so good, and I was kind of bummed that I wasn't able to get the same look to this painting here, but I guess that would have just required me to use like so many more hours on that painting if I tried to do that. So I think that these are good for what they are, and that's, you know, that's good enough. So here's definitely a fun favorite spread, which is kind of fun because this was not my favorite at all when I got this done. I hated this painting when I first got it done, which doesn't make any sense now because I really like this, and this is actually a print on my website. It's one of my favorite like full-size prints that I have, and I don't really know how to explain my dislike for some of my paintings. Again, I think that it has to do with, you know, the process of the painting. Sometimes it's just not as fun working on some paintings than, you know, the others. I think that this just turned out a little bit different than I would have liked, and that just sometimes happens, you know, like you might have a completely different idea in your head than what it is actually when you just paint that. So yeah, not my favorite painting in terms of what I originally thought when I got it done, but I love this one now. So here is another fan favorite spread, which is this time also one of my favorite spreads. I have turned both of these into prints. I actually made these both kind of in the end of my print making process. I was almost ready to order all of my prints at that moment, but then I did these and I was like, okay, I have to turn these into prints. I love them so much, and I'm so happy that I did because these have been both the best sellers on my whole website. So that was a good last second change. So I love these ones. As you can see, we are really going in with the autumnal vibes in the sketchbook. We have this very beautiful, moody, dark autumnal cabin here surrounded by all of these orange and yellow and green colors. I also love the reflection here and all of the little floating leaves. And then obviously we have this gorgeous candle reflection here as well, and these raindrops. I just love this vibe so much. Like, can I just put this, you know, feeling into a little bottle and just like smell that throughout the year? That would be amazing. So this spread is kind of, I don't really know how to explain this actually, because I like this a lot. I like both of the paintings, don't get me wrong, but this here was not supposed to turn out like this. I was kind of picturing this very moody autumnal little painting that had, you know, lots of shadows. It was going to be very dark, but at the end it turned out a little bit different. This kind of looks like straight from Twilight or something, which I don't hate at all, but it's just a little bit different from what I had expected. And here is a very red autumnal painting that I really like. I think that I mostly like this because the color scheme is so different from my other autumnal paintings that I had done, and I just really love, oh no, what is the name of this? Birch trees? Or is birch? Yeah, I think this is a birch tree. I always like mix this with spruces. But yeah, I love these trees, and I think that they always make the landscape look a little bit more interesting. So I really, really enjoy it. At this point, I was kind of, as you can see, I was painting so many autumnal paintings, and I really, really enjoyed it, but I also was kind of struggling with the fact that I had now put this kind of pressure on myself for painting as many autumnal things as possible. And since the season is so short, I really, really tried to paint so many of them that I didn't really paint anything else. As you can see, there's just a lot of autumnal spreads, which I love, but at the same time, I think that, you know, I talked about this in my previous video, but I think that this sketchbook kind of lost some of the fun experimental feeling that I had in my previous sketchbook with all of the different kind of spreads that I did. So that was a bit of an issue, but at the same time I kept going. I painted this swan painting here, and I don't care what you say, but I do not like this spread. Again, it's not a big deal if I don't like them, okay? Like, this is just my own opinion, and it doesn't mean that I'm a bad painter or anything. This just was not a fun project to work on. So as you can see, there are these big areas here in the bottom and in the top where pretty much everything is the same. You know, there isn't really that many fun, interesting things happening at the bottom of the painting, and not really anything very interesting happening in the top or in the bottom. So it's kind of like it was so repetitive, and I did not even realize that. And when a painting is very repetitive, it's very annoying to make it into a full spread. So I was really like struggling getting this done, and I think that I almost like kind of gave up at some point because I did not care about adding any more details. The swans itself are okay, the painting itself is okay, but I just didn't enjoy the process a lot, and I think that it's also very dark. But here we get into a completely different vibe, and I loved working on both of these paintings. This took me ages. I don't even know how much this took me. This was probably like 6 to 7 hours. By the way, I also forgot to say that this painting here was one of my most time consuming one page paintings here. I think this took me like 8 hours. But anyway, here I wanted to do something completely different. I wanted to go for autumnal vibes, but just like make it interesting and keep it fun, and just, you know, keep enjoying the painting process. As you can see, here we have some trees in the background, we have trees in the front, we have these fun fairy lights, we have the barn, we have the pumpkins and the ground and the fallen leaves. Like, I tried to keep it as interesting for me as I possibly could. Obviously, you can see from this topic, I painted this during, you know, Halloween time, and I was watching over the garden wall. You know, I was really in my autumn mood, and I really love this painting for it. It really encapsulates all that I love about autumn, even though I'm not really a Halloween person, like this kind of, I guess, US Halloween person anyway. But I really enjoy these kinds of vibes. And here we have a little painting with some fallen leaves. Again, this took me a lot of time. It doesn't look like it would take me that long because it's really just like one thing over and over again, like leaf textures just kind of on top of each other. But all of the different colors within the leaves just took me so much time. And here I wanted to paint something very easy and fast, so I decided to paint this spider web and this little moon and plant silhouettes painting here on the right side. I had a vision for this painting that is a little bit different than this, but I noticed that this, you know, spider web style is very hard to do with paints, and especially with this background. So it didn't turn out exactly how I expected it to, and I'm not like the biggest fan of this painting, but you know, it was such a fast little painting anyway, so it doesn't really matter. And here I just wanted to make something very dark and kind of Halloween-y, and I think it turned out okay. Again, it was just a very quick process. I just needed something fast to do here after I had spent so much time on the previous spread. And we are still going strong with the autumnal pages. So I realized that I hadn't really done any autumnal paintings where I had just like a very sunny or just like a colorful like daylight setting, I guess, because many of my autumnal paintings were so dark and moody. So I really just wanted to make something very light and colorful, and we have this little pathway here. It's kind of like a, I don't know, you know, a mess of colors all put together. But I quite enjoyed painting this, and I think this kind of scenery would be fun to see one day. I have yet to see a forest of these colors. I think that is probably because this was heavily edited, probably the photo that I was using, but it was a fun process anyway. But we are going to the moody autumnal vibe still once more, and we painted the last spread in this sketchbook with these autumnal colors. And I have to say that I did really enjoy painting these. I think this one turned out really good. I loved how the train turned out and the smoke on top. I really like that. I also like the trees here, but I think that the bridge itself was not the best thing. I think that maybe the lightest white highlights on the bridge were just a bit too contrasting for me, and there's just something here in the ground that I'm not completely sold on. So I think that it turned out overall very good, but there's something that I don't necessarily love about this painting. I feel like it's also because I was a bit burned out on the autumnal spreads at this point. I was so excited to make so many of them, but I felt like maybe something, you know, just like a little breather in between, painting something different would have been great. But I mean, at least I know now. And here I just wanted to paint this little cozy autumnal cabin, kind of similar to the other autumnal cabin painting that I did previously, but I like this more. And here we have some wintry paintings. As you can see, we definitely just hopped straight from those autumnal paintings into full-on winter. I mainly did it because I was actually kind of in a hurry to create some print paintings. So I made both of these into prints, and I was kind of like, I had an idea about what I wanted to paint for my winter paintings next. So I really just started to do that because I did not have much time, like I said. So these were the paintings I first wanted to do. This is not a spread that looks amazing together like this. I think I would have loved to pair this painting here next to some sort of other warm toned winter painting, but well, this is what we are going with. And here I just wanted to again paint some more paintings that I was going to be turning into prints. These are both prints as well. So this was one that many people really liked, and I did too. This was kind of like a similar painting to one original painting that I did before this, but I just wanted to kind of make this a little bit better now that I know what I would have done differently. So I really like how this turned out. I love the warm color scheme and the sunset setting, and this here is just a really nice peaceful winter scene, but it's very hard to sometimes make these, like, I don't know, these very snowy trees. They kind of look like clouds and they're really hard to make. I don't really know how to paint them. And here's also a print. This is a print of my website. As you can see, many of these paintings here had been turned into prints. I kind of was in a hurry, so that's why I did it. But at the same time, I enjoy the most when I can just paint on my own without any expectations. So it was a little bit stressful trying to paint knowingly, you know, beautiful pieces to be turned into prints. I don't know if you notice the same thing as I do. I love both of these paintings like on their own, but there's just something about them being together like this that makes me dislike the spread a lot. I think that is because the hue of these two colors is so different. Like, I don't know if you have done this, but like if you are editing a photo on like Lightroom or any photo editing app, there is a hue slider. So this feels like this like background color here looks like it's much more greenish. I don't know if really this is that green, but anyway, next to this it is. And this here is so purple. Like, they really are just like mismatching, and it's really annoying me. Like, I don't know why, but just looking at the spread kind of like annoys me a bit. But anyway, I like both of the paintings together. I like these, you know, little lights on the tree. I was making this, I think, during Christmas time-ish. And this is actually a painting that I finished on Christmas Eve. I love how this turned out. This is also a print on my website. I really like this. This is not at all like my usual color scheme. Blue is not my favorite by any means, but I love the light in this photo. I love the little yellow highlights and the orange tones in the trees. It just turned out so pretty, and I really like this painting. By the way, if you notice me just like holding the pages down, it's because this notebook definitely does not want to stay closed, and that has been an issue throughout this whole, you know, process as well. And that, I don't know if you can see it here in the video, but I also really struggled trying to line up things that go across the middle section of the page here, because they have such difference like within the thickness. So they almost always like looked really wonky when I just made them painting from like, you know, this angle. But when I looked at it from the top, I noticed that it's always very just very wonky and asymmetrical. I don't know. And here we have a very orangey yellow little winter spread. I really like these both. I actually made this because I turned it into my Patreon postcard for January. I started my Patreon page in January and I just wanted to create something beautiful and wintry. I'm not completely sure why I went for this kind of vibes. I think that I just really like this painting topic or this like reference photo and I painted it and that's it. This one here, like, okay, these two paintings together, like I like the look because it's like the same kind of colors, but you can see how much more detailed this painting here is, like just the shadows and all of the details and the highlights and the little differences in color. But here I feel like this just looks like so simple. It's like there's nothing bad about that, but I feel like I was not that into making all of the little shadows in the ground and things like that. So this ended up being very, very simple, but it's okay. And finally, we have a break from those like very seasonal paintings. As you can see, this whole sketchbook is kind of very, I don't know, it feels like it has one theme. And I think that, again, like I said previously, I talked about this in my previous video, but it really was like making me not love this whole sketchbook as much as my last one, because I really liked experimenting and doing different kinds of spreads, like painting things that I wouldn't normally like paint, or things that are not necessarily my own style, but like I still liked doing them. But here I was kind of sticking to the theme of trying to do seasonal things, and that was really you know, putting me into this box, like I said. So my original idea at some point here was that maybe I could only include wintry and autumnal spreads in the sketchbook, because I was kind of on a roll at some point. But I'm so happy that I ended up doing something different. And in the end, this kind of turned out to be also a little spring themed sketchbook as well. I think that that also just brought me a lot of happiness about this big project. But yeah, here is this greenery filled greenhouse page. I really like both of these. I don't know when this video is coming out, but I think I'm going to be turning this into a future print as well. I just really wanted to make something like greenhouse inspired and just paint some greenery, because that is always such a lovely thing to get back onto after, you know, a long winter. It was still winter. It's still winter when I'm when I'm filming this video, but it's just like there's something, you know, very refreshing about painting greenery after winter. But here we have, like I said previously, my palette cleansers are daisies and sunset clouds, and this was definitely another palette cleanser. I really just enjoyed the spread. I painted both of these in the like same night. I was just like, let me just paint this one painting here. And when I got it done, I think that it was already past 12. And I was like, well, I should be going to sleep, but I'm still gonna paint this one thing. And it took me probably less than an hour. So I'm so happy that I did that. You know, these might not be the most loved paintings whenever I post these online, but I sure love painting something like this once in a while. And before we get into the spring vibes fully, there was just one more winter painting that I did. And I have to say, I don't love this. I don't hate it. There is nothing to be hated in this painting, but this process was so complicated. It was so long, it was so tiring, and I did not feel like finishing it, so I did not. This is actually the only painting in the sketchbook that I fully just left without even finishing it. You can see these like little white areas around some shapes here as well in the crease of the notebook. I was just not feeling this painting. I was not having so much fun. I don't know. I think that this painting, like, I liked the reference photo and I was so excited to paint it, but when I realized how many different spots there were that had different textures, different light coming in, and just different areas that I had to focus on equally on all of them, I just realized, like, this is not for me. Like, just for example, the background here, then we have these buildings here, then we have some trees in front, then we have these trees, these these roads here that have different kinds of lighting in them because of the, you know, street lights and things like that. You know, they all have different shades of purple, pinks, oranges, yellows, and blues. And I was like, yep, that's it. I'm signing off. Good enough. But as you can see, we are finally getting into the more, I guess, spring themed paintings now. I feel like after that battle of the previous page, which by the way took me probably 8 hours even getting into this spot, I was like, yeah, I'm ready to go and do something a little bit different and a little bit more fun and cheery and something a bit more peaceful and, I don't know, nature filled. So again, I painted some spring themed paintings. We have a pretty romantic little meadow here, and then here we just have a little pathway filled with flowers. Again, I don't know when I'm going to be publishing this video, but I'm thinking that I would like to turn this into a print. This one here, I don't know what about the spread makes me really, or page really makes me love it. I think that it's just the romantic little countryside meadow vibes. I don't know if you have been in the same, you know, Instagram or social media bubble where you have seen a lot of these very like windy, romantic, you know, UK kind of countryside paintings with these like very loose meadows and trees, and I've seen them so much, and that really inspired me to paint this. So I really like how it turned out. And woo, finally, I don't know, but after all of those winter paintings, after all those autumnal paintings, like that made me really feel like I was breathing some fresh air. I guess it's really about the season we are currently in as well, because it's right now, we're in the cusp of spring, like sun is shining right now and the snow is melting, and like when I'm closing my eyes I can see this. So yeah, I'm also thinking about turning this into a print. Again, I don't know what's gonna happen when I publish this video. Like, have I already done that or not? I don't know, but I would love to turn this into a print. I love how this turned out. I was painting this at my parents' house when I was there for a little bit, cat sitting, and I don't usually like to paint there. As I said, I like to paint mostly at home because it's just my own creative space and I don't really feel that anywhere else, but I really felt like painting there, or I kind of forced myself to paint there because I had taken all of my painting supplies with me. So I decided to paint this full spread forest here. I realized that I have not really painted many like just basic forest paintings in my sketchbooks as like full spread paintings, because I often just include these in my one-page paintings, but this really deserved a full spread and I love that. I love the you know, the blue and white flowers together. They look so good. And here we have a spread that I absolutely love. So I've actually turned this into a tutorial on my Patreon page. So if you want to see how to paint this kind of water lilies and lily pads and raindrops painting, I would head on to my Patreon, which is linked below if you want to see the full tutorial. And this here is also, like, this exact painting is also there as a real-time painting video. Like, I think that it's about 2 hours of me painting this little goose painting. I love the spread so much. It looks so pretty together, and I just, like, I really enjoy this little geese painting here. I don't know if you have followed me for a long time, but if you know my last sketchbook, I also made a goose painting in that one as well that had 3 geese, and I just love the idea of them being on an adventure a year ago in my previous sketchbook, and now they're here again. I just love that. I'm a simple girl. I love that. And after all of those green paintings, I really felt like painting something different. As you can see, I decided to paint some tulips here. Tulips are kind of like a painting subject that I kind of go back to every single spring. I painted some tulips in my last sketchbook as well, if you remember. I think that I painted them in a vlog as well. So anyway, I really just wanted to go back and paint some tulips, and I think that now comparing especially this painting to that last tulip painting that I did a year ago, like, oh my gosh, the improvement is huge and I'm so happy with that. I actually painted this and then I turned it into my Patreon postcard for March. I just actually got the postcards in mail and I think that they looked really, really nice. And here I also just painted some kind of orangey pink tulips, but I made this little newspaper thing underneath, and I have to say that I really love this, and I love painting, like, you know, newspapers like this. They are so much fun, and just like writing things, making the scribbles, and then as you can see, this little Easter egg here, I guess, because I painted this when it was still very much winter and I was dreaming of spring. So yeah. And here we have this flower-filled mountain meadow with some trees. And I love actually how the flowers here in the front turned out. I love the daisies together with, I don't know what this flower is. Is it just like a purple daisy? I don't know, but these purple flowers, they look so good together. I love painting them, and I think that I've actually included them in many of my previous pages here as well, but they are just so much fun to paint. I don't love this spread. I think that it's because I used a lot of more watery paint layers when I was painting, especially with the clouds here in the back, and also this looks like water almost, but it's kind of like I guess we are very high up and we can see the land or the ground here, and it's kind of like, it just looks a little bit hazy and blurry, I guess. So I don't know. I think that the watery paint layers were kind of making this a little bit less sharp and less detailed, in my opinion. But I don't know, I think that I was painting this for quite a while, but I was also kind of like getting bored of this painting. So I don't think I had the same kind of care and attention with the spread as I have with some of my other pages. And here is this countryside inspired little painting with this garden with a red cabin and then some swans just chilling on a lake or a little creek, I don't know. And then we have just some flowers and things like that. And here we have this golden hour moment on this like little field or meadow. And I think that I would love to love this painting, but I feel like maybe the blue of the sky and the red of the cabin just like don't really work together. It's just kind of, I don't know if I can really explain to you why I have a slight dislike to this painting. It's not bad by any means, but I love the swans and this little pond, even just like the little water lilies here. I really, really like that. So I'm kind of sad that I don't love the cabin. I think that I should have just, you know, gone with another color instead of that red, because I think that then I would have just enjoyed it a little bit more. But this also took me a very long time to paint, actually. Usually whenever I paint some sort of cabins or houses or things like that, they usually take me a little bit more time. I also painted this in a Patreon video if you would like to see that. Here we have some little white flowers in the front, and this was also a painting that I just whipped up pretty easily. It wasn't a very time-consuming process. I was kind of just like mixing different colors together and just making it pretty fast, but I also do like the white fence and just like the details in that painting. But now we are getting to my last spread. I would love to say we ended on a high, but I don't think we really did. It's not bad by any means, but the issue with this is that I wasn't actually supposed to paint this apple painting here as the last spread. I accidentally sketched this spread here when I was making my plan for the last 5 spreads, and I accidentally sketched the apples on the last spread, even though I think they should have gone here. So then I was like, you know, the sketch had already taken me a pretty long time, so I didn't feel like just erasing it and doing it again on the correct spread. So I was like, well, I guess I'm doing it on the last spread then. It's not a bad spread by any means, but maybe it's not one that I would love to end my sketchbook with, especially because this took me so long. And in an ideal situation, I would maybe like to end my sketchbook on a fun and easy note, if that makes sense, because this just took me so long. I think that I was painting this very late at night. So yeah, I had originally just had this idea in mind that I just wanted to paint some red apples and then some green leaves and just make it kind of moody and fun. But I think that I noticed that this really lacked the contrast, so I added some white spots on the raindrops here, and then I also felt like maybe I should add also if the apples have raindrops, maybe the leaves do too. So I just added some white highlights on the leaves, and I was like, oh, that's actually quite a fun look. And then I was just adding it more and more and more, and at the end it looks very fun and it looks very pretty, but it's not just like my own style, if you know what I mean. Like, this looks kind of cartoonish and a little bit more illustrative, if that makes sense. But again, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not, you know, my own style necessarily. But yeah, that is the end of the sketchbook. You know, it doesn't really matter what it is because there is no more spreads after that. But overall, working in a sketchbook and finishing a complete sketchbook is such a personal, big project that can bring a lot of different emotions to the artist. And for me, there's just a little lack of attachment to this sketchbook in particular compared to my previous one. There's a lot of paintings that I absolutely love inside of this sketchbook, but somehow, you know, it just doesn't feel as great as my previous one. It's hard to explain as someone who is just sharing their art online because you only see the finished pieces, and I am the one who feels everything along the way. And I talk about this more in my previous video, but yeah, I think it's just maybe the seasons and just my mindset when I was making these pieces, but something about this just doesn't feel as amazing as with my previous sketchbook, which I love still to this day so much. And I even love my new sketchbook that I have already started. So yeah, there's definitely this, like, I'm not feeling as attached to these pieces, and it's also totally okay. You know, you cannot always love absolutely everything that you do. But yeah, I enjoyed working on this anyway, and I'm so happy that I can finally show you all of these pieces, and I really hope that you also like this video. If you have a favorite painting that you really love, I would love to hear it. And also, if there are any paintings that you really love and you don't see on my shop right now as prints, I would love to hear what you really love the most, so I can maybe consider turning something into a print later. But yeah, thank you so much for joining in with me on this very long sketchbook tour. I hope that you enjoyed your time, and I hope that you're having an amazing day. If you enjoyed this video and you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to my channel, and also like the video if you like the video, and maybe just tell me your favorite painting inside of this sketchbook in the comments so I know you watched until the end. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye bye.